Larry Elder, Larry Smelder, got him because he stinks. So let's talk about Larry Elder for a moment. Larry Elder is an American conservative radio talk show host. He used to be an attorney. He runs the Larry Elder Show. He's a conservative. He's cringe. He used to love Donald Trump. He's been accused of sexual misconduct. He had a judge show called Moral Court. Oh yeah, wasn't Moral Court like Judge Judy? But instead of it going over actual laws, what it did was
they come to Larry Elder over like petty family squabbles.
Let me see if I can find something about it.
The tension of a court show.
You're both degenerates and you disgust me.
The emotion of a talk show.
Now hold up, everybody, I'm talking over here.
The excitement of a game show with cash prizes for those who are morally right.
$2,000 to the accuser.
This show isn't about small claims.
You don't do something to somebody that you don't want done to you.
It's about the difference between right and wrong.
It's my judgment.
Moral Court, where it pays to be right.
It's all the worst problems of modern TV. It's just, what the fuck? Yeah, it's like, it's gamifying people's lives to the worst possible degree.
I'm the Reverend Jeffrey Berry. I'm taking my nephew Scott to moral court for cutting me out of his life and shunning me because I'm the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
He has the credentials. He does. He went through all of that and he still cuts him out of his life. How sad. All of the most destructive parts of like modern TV condensed into like one show. With that being said, let's switch gears just a little bit. I want to talk about California. So California is in a little bit of turmoil at the moment. I've never been to California. But I have some California frogs. If I have any California frogs like listening to this, can I get a little shout out? Can I get a little like what's up? Can you give a little wave? Can you say hi? Can you say what's up? Can you stand up? Californians, please stand up. California is going through some turmoil because they're having a recall election. So a recall election is basically where you have an election where you recall. Who's getting recalled? The governor, Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom has been in a little bit of trouble. He's been in a little hot water as California is one of the places that has one of the biggest problems when it comes to COVID-19. Homelessness is still a massive problem. The electoral functioning of their government. People aren't the happiest when it comes to Gavin Newsom. And it's going to be an off-year election as well. So the question is, why are we talking about California and Larry Elder and Gavin Newsom? Well, when it comes to this recall election, those three things are going to be extremely important because you would imagine that I wouldn't care to talk about this very much because there's no real way for anyone to kind of do anything about this, right? Like, Gavin Newsom gets kicked out, who cares, right? Who cares? It's California, a Democrat's gonna get in. You would imagine that California's a really big Democratic stronghold. And on a state level, it is. There's lots of places that actually have a really big Republican stronghold in there, and they send a decent amount of Republicans to Congress. That being said, on a state level, you wouldn't really imagine that you have to worry about anything going a Republican's way because you'd have to get over 50% of the vote, which is very unlikely. California is like 62, 65% Democrat. So the likelihood of that happening is dramatically low. But when it comes to a recall election, you don't have to worry about that much. Well, the Republicans don't, because the Republicans pushed for this specific recall election because they knew that it would be a good opportunity for them to get someone in office. And you'd wonder, like, how would they get someone in office? There's a decent amount of Republicans. There's around like 40%, 40 to 43% of California is like Republican, somewhere like around there. I think it like on like really good Democratic years, it can be like as small as I think like high 30s, something like that. But it's still like a big thing. That being said, you don't have to worry about that if you're a Republican during a recall election, because you don't have to actually win 50% of the vote. You just have to come in second place. All you really have to do is foment enough like disdain for the current governor that what happens is that remove is higher than keep. And so that governor's kicked out. You don't need to get over 50% of the vote to be able to win. You just have to come in second place. So you could win with 49% of the vote, 30, 20. You can win with 1% of the vote. You can win with less than 1% of the vote if there's that many people in the race. As long as you get in second place, you get to be the next governor. And it's really curious because Gavin Newsom, even though he's doing better in the polls were as far down in August as 0.2% for keep. They've gone back up now, but with things like moving around a lot, who knows what they could be. So obviously, and it's still not that high. It's 52%. It's an almost 9-point spread, but anything can change when it comes to that day. And so who's in second place? Larry Elder with 22% of the vote. So it is real that Larry Elder could unironically become the governor of California. The man who went on his talk show to say that he was accused of sexual harassment or assault. I forget which one of the two. Who said awful things about black people. Who said if Dianne Feinstein, one of the if not the oldest senator in office right now, were to like leave or have to be discharged or die in office, that he would replace her with a Republican. This is the guy who has like a reasonable chance. I mean, it's not like impossible. It's a really hard uphill battle, but it's not impossible for him to become the next governor. So this is Larry Elder, and this is why we're talking about him, because he doesn't have like an unrealistic chance to become the governor. With things getting this close as they were in August, it could be possible, which is worrying because how bad Larry Elder actually is. It was uncovered again that he argued that slave owners were owed reparations. He said that black people don't deserve reparations, and if they did, then slave owners deserve reparations because the government took their property from them. Very normal human being type stuff. And don't worry, we don't have to read about the stuff that he said, even though we can a little bit. We can just listen to it ourselves from this episode of the Candace Owens show on PragerU, where they got to talking about how shitty black people are and how they really don't deserve reparations. Let's talk about it. Doesn't take much to get a recall election going. Only 1.5 million signatures, which is nothing in California. Yeah, that's like an incredibly small amount in California. I feel like that's the amount of people who live in a neighborhood. I feel like you can walk into a Walmart in California and you'd find 1.5 million people. Man, she looks like a supervillain. She looks like a fucking snake. Candace Owens is jeez. Anyways.
What was wrong when they decided Loving versus Virginia and struck down the anti-miscegenation laws in the South. They were wrong.
Right, they were right.
They shouldn't have struck them down. They should have put them back up.
That's exactly what they're saying.
Anyways, they were talking about how the left is actually the ones who hate black people now because there are some places that have black dorms. The normal memes.
Regarding what the damage this false accusation does, the police pull back. Once you call them racist, and they're afraid that if they pull somebody over who's black, they're going to be accused of racism. They may even be prosecuted. They may even lose their pension. They're going to pull back. And when they pull back, crime goes up.
So the thing is, if this is true, then those cops are beta bitches and don't deserve their job. I mean, they were scared about that. So they're more scared of being called racist on Twitter than they are about like actually stopping crime. Is that true? Is that real? Genuinely curious. Is that real? If you're more scared about being called racist online than you are about accidentally shooting an innocent or unarmed person, then you're a bad cop and you don't deserve to be on the force or have any amount of power to end someone's life because you don't have your priorities straight. Oh no, guys, all of our cops are scared that you guys are going to be mean to them on Twitter, so they stop doing their job. Oh no, talk about beta. Talk about men being weak if that's the case. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. So outside of Ferguson and St. Louis, where Michael Brown was shot and killed, crime went up. Crime went up in Baltimore after Freddie Gray was killed. Crime went up in Chicago.
So here's the thing. There was genuine police misconduct in a lot of those cases. And so if they're scared to do their job because they don't know if they're going to like kill somebody just out on the street, once again, they're a bad cop. Is that all it took? Man, is that all it took to get them to stop doing their job? I guess they were like really bad cops then. You should never be mean to cops online or else they'll stop protecting and serving. I thought these guys were supposed to be like the finest, right? Like in a lot of like cities, they're called like Minneapolis finest, New York's finest. They call themselves the finest all the time. They call themselves the protectors, the defenders. And then all of a sudden, once they get called out for being like shitty on the street, they just stop doing their job. That's incredible to me if that's the case. They're really bad at their job then. I'm gonna go bully some cops even more now. I guess if that's all it takes. I guess we don't need to defund police. All we need to do is just call them stinky poo-poo heads, and then they'll just stop policing. Who could have seen this coming? That's so sad. Also, the fact that the crime rate went up kind of isn't true. You can look up the crime rates year to year when it comes to Chicago, Baltimore, Minneapolis. I looked up specifically recently. I looked up St. Louis. Like the next year in St. Louis, crime went down. So I don't know what he's saying. I don't know where he gets this shit from. Maybe the next month crime went up a little bit, but then it went back down. I don't know. But I don't know, did they stop doing their job for a day and then crime went to like 10,000 trillion? Like everyone was doing crime and then it went back down again instantly. I don't know. But year over year, the crime rate has been dropping since 2014 all the way up until 2017 or 18 in St. Louis. I know that for a fact.
The very people that these people, Black Lives Matter, claim that they care about, those are the ones who are hurt the most.
Right.
Why isn't Black Lives Matter out here in South Central Los Angeles dealing with the Crips and the Bloods? They're killing each other.
Black on black, and that goes against the narrative.
What the fuck are you talking about? I've actually never understood this talking point. Why isn't Black Lives Matter out here using their magic powers to stop gang violence? Like, what's the argument here? I'm genuinely curious. Like, what's the argument here? Yeah, crime went up as in the police started arresting all of the protesters and they called them, and they threw them in jail off of, for like charges. No, I mean like for like disorderly conduct or something. If that's what they mean, like crime rate went up. No, like I'm just like, what are they talking about? Is BLM supposed to be marching in the streets being like, stop gang violence? If you're a gang, stop. Just stop. You ever think about like not? Guys, it's really mean for you guys to just shoot each other over like the drug war. Guys, stop. Just stop, man. It's not cool. It's unpog, man. You guys are not pog. Yeah, BLM says they care about crime. Where are they when it comes to banning crime? When are they gonna ban crime so black people stop beating each other? Ban crime, BLM, but they don't care about that because it goes against the narrative. Yeah, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I've never understood this point. Yeah, for one, BLM is about police violence. You hold on like to one thing at a time. And two, like I don't fucking know. Yeah, and comparing cops to criminal gangs isn't necessarily. This is not the argument you think it is, good sir.
Right.
6,000 black people were killed last year. Almost all of them killed by other black people. Right. As opposed to a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of unarmed black people killed by the police. And unarmed, by the way, does not mean not dangerous. Michael Brown was unarmed, but they found his DNA on the officer's gun. He was trying to get the gun. Right. So even if you're unarmed,
what if he touched him and then touched the gun? And that's how the DNA got on the gun. You ever think about that? That shit's wild. Who could have ever seen this? You do know like black people are more likely to have evidence planted on them by the police. With that being said, I'm not saying that every time something like this happens that they're being like planted in like it's being misconstrued, but there's a higher likelihood of that happening. So that needs to be taken into account. In the same time, like I don't know. This is dumb as fuck. I mean, Candace is now working with Ben Shapiro, so I guess she does actually believe that banning crime is like an actual thing that you can do to stop crime. I guess because apparently crime is not already banned. That's why it's crime.
Doesn't mean you're not dangerous. But the point is, those are the ones that we care about when an unarmed black person is killed. Let's deal with them on a case-by-case basis. Almost always the officers are either exonerated or they can't get a guilty plea. And that's because most people recognize that what officers do is dangerous. They have to make split decisions at crucial times. And you have this big presumption of innocence, and you have to find them guilty by beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's hard to do that.
So your facts are racist, right? That's
yeah, I mean, just because they were called innocent doesn't mean that there isn't still a problem there. You can say that cops aren't held to a high enough standard. You can say that their presumption of innocence or like being correct is when it's just your word versus a cop's word. The cop is always taken more seriously. That can be another thing as well. Like when it comes to these sorts of things, especially when like cops do things like turn off their body cams, this could be a really big thing. when it's just your word versus the cop's word, and then you're just sitting there and the court sees you as just like a lowly do nothing fucking criminal. Yeah, you can have things be ruled against you when the evidence, when either the evidence is deleted or just because you're not like a cop, you are treated worse. This happens all of the time. I don't know like what the point's supposed to be here. I mean, there were people that got off from killing like black people all the time throughout history. I don't know, maybe he doesn't care about them. Yeah, his DNA was on the gun, but not necessarily a fingerprint. Yeah, interesting that.
That's what they tell you. Your facts are racist. Right. And the one thing that the black community hates the most is black people acknowledging that our community as a whole has an issue, right? Black on black crime should be discussed. Over 90% of all the killings are black on black, right? So why do you think it is that our community never wants to hold the mirror up to ourselves?
Because that would
never want to hold them. What does that mean? What does that mean? Hold the mirror up to ourselves? You never think in the black community they're like, man, we got problems? You never think that they have like problems or anything? Like, they just don't like your solutions. You don't have any real solutions. They're like, oh yeah, black people are like really poor and they are pretty disenfranchised. And you're just like, well, have you ever decided to like get a job? Have you ever decided to never make a bad decision in your entire life? Have you ever decided to just be lucky? Like, sure, you can say all of that stuff, but it doesn't really help out when it comes to this. I feel like they're just like really dumb. Hundreds and hundreds of years of studying society and sociology, the entire study of sociology, criminology, all of these things that are wrapped around into why people and groups of people do what they do and where they are, and like why crime happens and why people are disenfranchised and why it's hard to just like pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you don't have enough money to even buy boots. And they look at this hundreds and hundreds of years of scientific research, and they go scientific, sociological, psychiatric research, and go, have you ever decided to like just work though? And they think that they're big brain. They think that they're the smartest people in the room. It's the dumbest shit I've heard in my entire life. Like, you're not even going to engage with all of the arguments. I mean, there's a reason why this study has been taken so seriously, and there's a reason why when it's implemented, it works. In Baltimore, what happened is we did a stream segment on it, but I never got around to uploading it. What they did is they stopped criminalizing low-level crime. So if I remember, in Baltimore, they were running low on like police resources because a lot of police, they didn't want to like have COVID spread so rapidly throughout the police precinct. They had some police off, so obviously they didn't have enough cops to do all of the work that they could have. They started prioritizing like really low-level crime, especially when it comes to like drug usage and stuff. And guess what happened? Violent crime went down. Murder, assault, like kidnapping, like all of this stuff went down. They stopped like doing broken windows policing so incredibly hard. So it made the city better at the end of the day. Incredible. And it's not just like, the crime, they stopped calling it a crime, so the crime went down. No, I'm talking about a different type of crime that went down. Violent crime. They stopped criminalizing a lot of non-violent low-level offenses and like misdemeanors. And they obviously kept up on like murder and stuff, because you can't like stop policing murder, really. You know what I mean? So that stuff went down. It made life better for everyone. But they don't really care about that, because these people care more about punishment and like getting people into line than they do about making the country better.
Then mean blaming the victim. That's how they see it. It's easier to yell and scream about racism than it is to look at black people and say, we have to change our behavior. We have to do better. Right. We have to raise our game. You remember when the Dream Team destroyed the whole world in the Olympics and we won by 40, 50 points? The rest of the world didn't say, let's lower the hoop. Let's widen the hoop for us. They got better. They raised their game. And the rest of the world is no longer getting destroyed the way they used to. We need to raise our game. We need to graduate from high school. We need to stop having children outside of wedlock. We need to do the right thing by the children that we bring into the world. And
it's literally like, black people, you got problems. Have you ever thought about not having problems? Like, damn, dude. I don't think anybody's ever thought about that before. Man, he should start emailing like research groups and massive think tanks. He should do a TED talk. Be like, you wouldn't have problems if you would stop having problems. And everyone goes, oh, wow. Oh my gosh. No one's ever thought about that before. You dumbass, you piece of shit. Obviously. Yeah, just don't have problems, Lamau. Just stop having problems, Omega Lol, forehead. Like, this is ridiculous. What leads people to not graduate from high school? Is it just because they play too much rap music and they bump too loud in they lowrider? Is that what makes people not graduate from high school, or are there more like underlying sociological problems that lead people to have that happen?
We're not doing that.
That's exactly right. And we're not competing. And what I think we're suffering from also is this, we have no self-confidence. We don't think we can. Like, we've been sold, and I think from the time that we step into school, that we can't, right? Here are the reasons you can't. We are handed so many.
Her foundation is bad. She's like giving me the Trump look. You know what I mean? Look, their foundation is not, that's not the color of her skin. Her skin is lighter than that. Is she doing blackface? Like, just... Wait, look at her concealer or foundation or whatever the fuck this is. Like, around her eyes and in her eyelids, it's so much lighter than the rest of, you can see this like circle from like, look at that. That's not her skin tone. Skin tone, chicken bone, leave me alone, dude. Her logical foundation? No, I mean like the foundation. I've just been looking at her eyes. Like, look how much lighter it is. This is such a weird gradient, you know? And it stops like right at the bridge of her nose. I'm the master of makeup. Well, I've started to like wear foundation on stream. Well, not foundation, my bad. I started to wear like concealer on stream every now and again. I'm not doing it today because I was too lazy to. But no, like this is just weird. This is just weird. It just looks weird. She's pulling the Trump, man. I wear makeup once and started critiquing everyone's makeup. True. I'm now god of makeup. Sorry. She's reverse Batman. You're right. Shark makeup tips when? I don't know. If I get good enough, I'll do like a guy's everyday concealer tutorial, okay? So for you guys who are a little self-conscious because you have like acne, you get like a little acne breakout, I'll tell you how to like touch up your like acne spots or like hyperpigmentation. There you go. It won't be like a James Charles fucking glam look. I don't want to look like that shit, but like, I don't know, like some more even skin tone type meme. That's basically it. That's all that I would be doing. Don't make fun of her makeup, Shark. She's gonna accuse you of being anti-black. I'm anti-black, but only for Candace Owens.
Excuses before we even get out into the real world that it's become a plague on Black America. You don't have to worry about that, Ken. It's not your fault. It's because of slavery. You don't have to worry about that, Larry. It's not your fault. It's because of Jim Crow. You don't have to worry about that. What you do need to worry about.
No one said you don't have to. Like, everyone worries about issues in the Black community. No one is like, oh yes, there's more crime in Black communities, I guess we won't worry about it. Like, no, everyone worries about it. We want to understand why it's happening though. The only difference is between us, the big difference between us and conservatives is we care about why things are happening, and through understanding why something happens, we want to figure out how we can fix it. Conservatives don't care why things are happening. They all they see is that things are happening and people do things, so just stop though, which isn't any way to fix any problem. There's been no social problem that you've just been like, but stop though, and it's just gotten better. This has never happened in the entire history of humankind. Like, just stop though isn't an actual solution to any problem in the world. We actually care about understanding why things happen, and they think that trying to understand things is just like a waste of time and means that you don't care. That's the only real reason, which is sad. It's ridiculous, and it leads them to think. It leads them to not hit on the issue and then lay all of the blame at the feet of these groups of people that have been completely disenfranchised through the history of time, and not fix to understand. It's a problem that happened through racism and institutions, so we fix it through addressing racism and fixing institutions. Like, if you have a kid to grow up in a bad neighborhood, telling the kid like, and he never had like a good foundation in life. He never like grew up in, he never had any good opportunity to go to school. His school was like really awful, and it was like a really bad influence, and it was poorly funded, and he didn't have any like good extracurricular activities. Like, this child, and he grows up in a poor family and a poor neighborhood. This kid is going to have a bad life, and he's going to grow up and do bad things, not because he's just like dumb and stupid, because he's been dealt a really bad hand. Like, you can take any child and put them in that situation, and then they're going to come up poorly, because it's the environment that helps mold the children. The children don't mold the environment. They don't like bend space and time around them to fix society. Obviously, you helping to make something better will work, but understanding why someone does something is a good way to understand how we address it, which is ridiculous. And they don't care for that. They don't care for trying to understand any of that.
Is how angry you should be at the white man, right? The white man, because of what they did. I've never been a slave in this country. Me saying that on CPAC stage went viral, and these black publications were so angry.
No, I mean, yeah, they should be angry because that's dumb as hell. It's just dumb. It's no one's saying that you were a literal slave, Candace. But like, if your great grandfather was, and then he wasn't able to build wealth, and then that family wasn't able to build wealth, and that family wasn't able to build wealth, and that family wasn't able to build wealth because of racism, then oh my gosh, who could have seen this coming? Today, you're telling me that these people are poor? Who could have seen this coming? Who could have seen this coming? And you're telling me the family that's literally been enfranchised since the existence of this country and been able to build wealth off the backs of people that they made property? What? You're telling me if I hand down $300,000 worth of assets to my children, that my children have a better life than people whose parents die when they're 5 and hand down like nothing but keys to a car that got stolen? Man, who could have seen that coming?
Well, Candace has never been a slave. I literally have never been a slave in this country. I cannot relate.
There goes the argument for reparations.
Right. There it is. And look, I think I could be pro reparations. I think we should allow people the opportunity or the chance to go back to Africa. I would sponsor that like you wouldn't believe.
I don't think
Yeah, I mean, you want reparations? I got reparations for you. How about we all put together a couple $1 million to get these dirty freaking black people to go back to Africa. You love Africa, right? Yeah, Pan-Africanism. Come on, go back. Get out, leave. Okay. Like Candace literally doing go back to Africa meme. Oh no, wrong button. Candace literally doing the go back to Africa meme. I would sponsor that like you wouldn't believe. Get these filthy blacks out of here. What the fuck?
We should allow people the opportunity or the chance to go back to Africa. I would sponsor that like you wouldn't believe.
I would throw all my money at that.
I don't think you can have a long line.
Right, I don't think we would either. But you hear that all the time in theatrical voices. They took us from the motherland. Do you know what's going on in the motherland today? Have you been to Africa? I've been to Africa. Okay, I'm perfectly content living in America. Most people don't realize the opportunities that you have here in America, you'd have never had otherwise. And this was actually one of the first countries that banned the slave trade. Right? I mean, Britain was ahead of us. The UK was ahead of us, but America was just right behind them.
By the way, when you
Yeah, they're literally doing the you say slavery was bad, but you wouldn't want to live in. Sure. Maybe destroying an entire continent, stealing their people, enslaving them for hundreds of years, and then economically crushing them for another couple hundred years is bad. But would you really want to live in the country that we completely destroyed? Think about that. Like, what is happening? Like, imagine saying this about like Japan or something. Like, can you imagine being like, yeah, I mean, you all say that America was really bad for nuking Japan, but did you ever see those documentaries about what happened to those people who were nuked? It didn't look too good. You probably like being American now, would you? Would you like to be nuked or would you like to be American? Like, this isn't an argument. This isn't an argument. This isn't an argument. What are you talking about? You can't destroy a place and then be like, oh yeah, you think that destroying the place was bad? Well, it's destroyed now, isn't it? You wouldn't want to live there now, would you? No, I wouldn't, because you destroyed it. If Africa had the same, Africa is rich in resources. If they had the same opportunity to not have the resources extracted from their country and then be like enslaved, like in the country and outside of the country, then yeah, I think Africa would be in a pretty cool place. They're super rich, and Africa has like almost all of the fastest developing economies in the world right now because Europe and America are finally letting their foot off their throat. It's wild. They're doing very well for themselves. Well, in some places they're doing very well for themselves. Like, have you ever heard of like all of the stuff that, it's not just the transatlantic slave trade. Have you heard of all of the other stuff that like Europe and other countries have done in Africa? It's pretty unpog. It's pretty anti-pog, if you ask me. And to sit here and be like, oh yeah, well, why don't you go back there? Oh, you don't want to because we destroyed it? Well, well, I guess you should be more thankful now, shouldn't you? she's not spitting facts, but she's definitely spitting something. She's spitting like her brain particles because her brain is fucking leaking out of her head and into the back of her throat. Like, because there's no possible way you can be like anywhere near cognitive and say shit like that. Atrocities in the Belgian Congo estimated to be 1 to 15 million deaths. You say European people were bad for killing 15 million people? Well, you wouldn't want to be one of those 15 million people that they killed, did you? Didn't think so. Be more grateful.
You mentioned that the UK was ahead of us. They were. Do you know that the slave owners were compensated? After they lost their quote unquote property, the government compensated slave owners.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so
what do you mean quote unquote property? After they lost their quote unquote property, you mean like after they stopped them from raping, torturing, and murdering people? Quote unquote property. I'm telling you guys, if these people were around during slavery, they'd be like, yeah, like the raping, torturing, and murdering is really bad, but has anybody ever thought about the ethics of the property rights going on here? Bro.
were compensated. After they lost their quote unquote property, the government compensated slave owners.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so when people talk about reparations, do they really want to have that conversation?
Is that really that interesting? Here in the US, like slave drivers were compensated too. I know in DC, like Abraham Lincoln freed 900 slaves, freed 900 people who were being enslaved. Every single person who was a slave driver who claimed ownership over that human being, they were given $900 for each person, which is the equivalent of around $8,000 to $9,000 today. So imagine that someone's like a slave driver of like 10 people, and then they freed up those people. They would get like $100,000. Like, excuse me? Like that's nowhere near the amount of compensation that Black people have ever even dreamed of getting. Yeah, it's crazy. They promised to pay reparations to slaves, but then they only gave money to slave drivers. Why would you compensate slave owners? Listen, it's Cabo. Obviously, you haven't thought about the property rights disputes going on here. We love here in the US, we love property. Property is more important than anything else. So even if human beings are property, we can't think about like stopping them from doing that without thinking about paying them for it. What do you mean by interesting? Yeah.
Because like it or not, slavery was legal. And so their property, their legal property was taken away from them after the Civil War. So you can make an argument that the people that are owed reparations, and not only just Black people, but also the people whose quote property, close quote, was taken away after the end of the Civil War.
I don't know how to explain these people other than like they're actual ghouls. Is he serious? Not only is he serious, he's running for governor of California, and there's like a non-zero chance that he could win. This is the upside down, bizarro hell ghoul world that we live in right now. If this is the case, Larry Elder, I just want to ask him. I just want to talk to him. I wish I could get close to Larry Elder just so I could talk to him. And not to do anything else. I just want to talk to him. I want to say, do you think that we owe reparations to Nazi Germany for like destroying all of those camps that they built? Because like it or not, the Holocaust was legal for Germany. So if you think about it, we destroyed all that property. So basically, instead of Germany paying reparations to everyone else, then actually we should be paying reparations to Germany. Like, what's wrong with you? You need to be like in a psych ward right now. You belong in a straitjacket in a padded room. What's happening? I'm losing my mind. Two ghouls ghouling it out. Like, what the fuck is happening? These people are hollow. They're hollow on the inside. You know, he would bite the bullet and say yes. Maybe. Listen, Larry Elder, as governor of California, makes an impassioned speech to Israel to pay back Germany for Israel needs to pay reparations to Germany. Like, yo, bud, you need to take a seat. This is definitely out of pocket. The pocket has been like, it's so out of pocket. I feel like he removed his pockets and then threw them in the wind, you know? This is just like, this guy belongs in fucking Arkham Asylum, man. He should be cellmates with the Joker. Like, this is not okay. We did rebuild Germany, but that's not reparations. That's just so they don't do a Nazi 2 Electric Boogaloo. That wasn't reparations. That was just like, hey bud, we're gonna do this because the first time they went Nazi mode, so we didn't want them to do it again. That wasn't reparations. That wasn't like we didn't do it out of like the kindness of our hearts. We just wanted to stop them from like being Nazis. Do they actually believe this? No, the saddest thing is they do actually, some of the things they don't believe, but they do believe a fair amount of this. A fair amount of this they do actually, unironically, they 100% back. In private, they'd say some of this stuff. Now, I don't think all of it, but a decent amount of it.
So what do you make of...
and by the way, that's why there was no war in the UK.
Right.
The slave owners got substantial amounts of money.
That's fascinating.
And you look at the amount of money adjusted for today's dollars, it was a great deal of money that the former slave owners got, which is one of the reasons they didn't fight a war.
I can't wait to look into this. I never knew that. The slave owners were given...
That's why the great Eldersky's here.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. I'm so interested in that.
By the way, the last time I was on CNN...
I can't believe that. Can you imagine like back in if they were talking about this when it comes to like the people who were actually enslaved? They wouldn't be like, oh wow, that's so interesting. She'd be like, oh my gosh, that's such a problem. Look at those handouts. That's so disgusting. They're such a disgusting human being. Like, even if you think that it holds up, that property rights and property disputes holds up there, then you should absolutely be like, oh wow, if that's the case, then yeah, the slaves definitely deserve compensation. But they're like, no, that's so interesting. Look at her, just like, look at her cackling. Look at this ghoul cackling. She's evil, man. And you're gonna tell me that this woman is not evil? You're unironically going to sit here and tell me that this is not an evil person? Look at her. She's like the people who made it their job to rape, murder, and torture human beings. That's literally their job, rape, murder, and torture. And they wake up and they're like, ooh, baby, I can't wait to rape, torture, and murder people today. That's actually what they did. And she's like, wow, that's so fascinating that they got paid for raping, torturing, and murdering people. Wow, that's so cool. Man, and those people who got tortured, they don't deserve anything because they will get handouts. And that is yikes. Yeah, we all know the real victims of slavery were the slave owners. What the fuck? Actual ghouls.
One of the last times I was on CNN, I mentioned a poll that was done by CNN and Time magazine in 1997. And black teens and white teens were asked about racism. And not too surprisingly, most of them, both black teens and white teens, felt that racism was a major problem in America. But then blacks were asked, is racism a major problem, a minor problem, or no problem in your own daily life? 89%, Candace, of black teens said racism was a minor problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, more black teens and white teens said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism. So I mentioned that to Don Lemon last time I was on CNN. That was the last time I was on CNN.
Oh, Don Lemon, yeah, exactly right. He's a...
I don't know what that proves. Like, for one, I'm not sure if that's real, for one. And wait a second. If you were to ask black people today about that same question and they felt differently, would he agree or disagree? Because now he's just appealing to some data that he agrees with. But if it were to go the other way, he wouldn't say anything about it at all because it disagrees with him. Yeah, and we all know about teens. We all know about 16-year-olds notorious for knowing a lot about the world and having lots of opportunities at their fingertips. They're like fucking 14. What are you talking about? So I asked a 14-year-old about racism in the workplace, and he said it wasn't a really big problem. Like, okay, cool. I mean, if he asked black teens today that same exact thing, yeah, he would absolutely disagree with what it found. And then he'd say like, there's this and there's that. But back then they were real. So we obviously, if that's the case, then we can't like rely on that specifically. If he's going to say like, unless he's going to say like today, then yeah, if it came out that they felt racism was a big problem today, and not taking advantage of opportunities is way less of a problem. If he's going to say that, then I mean, then I guess at least he'd be consistent. I think it's a dumb way to go about the world, but I think it's consistent. But I highly doubt he'd be consistent there. He just went with he just cherry picked the piece of data that he thinks agrees with him. And then he went, see, back in the day, they agreed with me. Like, okay, cool. Wow. You don't understand, Mr. Don Lemon. You think that you've bested me, but I have another trick up my sleeve. Little did you know, on my way here, I talked to 12, 14-year-olds, and they told me they've never seen racism in their entire life. Absolutely bodied. You're done, sir. You're going to say something. You're going to disagree with a black, one of your fellow blacks, sir. Go ahead and try. Like, okay. Here, you can look at this piece of paper. that I printed out. They wrote in crayon that they said racism is not anything that they've seen before. Interesting, Mr. Don Lemon. What say you now? Like, okay. Okay. All right, buddy. Like, I mean, that's not how we rate racism or like try and find racism in the world, but you know, whatever. You can make a case for environmental conditions resulting in, listen. When it comes to the environmental thing, that's absolutely true. But we figure out what environmental, this is what I talked about earlier. We try and find out what environmental problems led people to make bad decisions. People don't make bad decisions because it's just a funny meme. People don't make bad decisions because they're just bored. People make bad decisions because they're put in bad situations where they thought that would be a reasonable decision. People usually think that the decisions that they're making are reasonable. Like, do you really think that like gangsters and like gangs on the street are rolling around like, hell yeah, buddy, I'm so bad right now. Ooh, baby, I'm like a super villain. Aha, Lamau, dude, we're so bad. Lamau, dude, this is so cool. It feels so good to be so bad. Like, that doesn't happen. They probably think what they're doing is reasonable. And a lot of those people, they have like people to take care of as well. Lots of people don't just do crimes because it's funny. You know, they feel like it's like a reasonable way to live given their circumstances. I think you should really look at a society that breeds people to believe that like being a gang member is like a valuable option. Like, a lot of trouble, you go through a lot of trouble being a gang member. Lots of people would rather not be a gang member. I think they'd rather have a fulfilling job where they don't risk their life every second of every day and have to sleep with a gun under their pillow. I think most people would enjoy that life, but they're not taking that. They're not going that way. You have to figure out why. They don't care about understanding why. What is this? Sacramento Bee?
You're on record as calling for the end to the minimum wage, saying, quote, the correct minimum wage ought to be $0.
Right.
How do you think California voters currently earning the minimum wage, which is $13 to $14 an hour, would react to that?
Well, given the indoctrination that people have about the minimum wage, they probably would react to it well. I would point out that there was editorial in 1987 in the New York Times, an editorial, not op-ed piece, and the headline is correct minimum wage 0.00. And they made all the economic 101 arguments. That is, that when you arbitrarily
yes, the plague of economics 101 on American society. Yes, still going on.
Increase the cost of labor, all sorts of bad.
If you look at this article from 60 years ago, you'll find out that people actually agreed with me. I think it's really wild that, 60, you have to pull articles from 60 years ago to find ones that agree with you. I don't know. I think it just says a lot.
Bad consequences come from that. People's hours are cut back. A hiring decision is deferred. Prices of goods go up in order to compensate for that forced increase in labor, which is usually the biggest cost in running any kind of business. Milton Friedman, the Nobel laureate economist, who was a friend of mine, said that he believes that the minimum wage was, quote, the most anti-Negro law on the statute books, close quote, because at one time, believe it or not, a black teenager was more likely to be employed than a white teenager, more likely to be employed than a white adult, more likely to be employed than a black adult, because that teenager was able to sell his labor for less. When you come in with the minimum.
He's got a point. Larry Elder does have a point. There was a time in society where black people did have higher employment than white people. That was during slavery. So he does have a point. Hey, listen, maybe Larry's onto something. No, boo, this is why you lose your under the desk privileges. Leave. I care about you, bud, but I can't have you destroying the things that I pay for. I can't have it. I paid for that. Oh no. Oh yeah. Yeah, he's like black people should deserve to be paid less. I think this is about as far as we need to go with Larry Elder and Candace Owens. Moral of the story, you're right. Don't vote for Larry Elder. And moral of the story, if you're a California frog, make sure to vote. As of the time of this recording, we are 10 days away from the election. Make sure that this guy goes out like a wet fart, all right, and leaves us never to be seen again. He's an absolute ghoul, menace to society, awful human being who does not deserve to have any subordinates or being in charge of any human beings ever. No one should ever listen to this man. Please, I beg of you, if you're a California frog, get out there and vote if you have the opportunity to. It is important. And I don't care if you think your vote doesn't matter. With how close the race was, look at this, 0.2%. If it closes back down again like this, there is an opportunity for Larry Elder, that man, to be the governor of California for at least some time. Awful, terrible, garbage human being. And you have the option to make sure that doesn't happen. So why not?